Welcome to the UFC Paris edition of Chalk or Not, where I briefly go over all the chalky spots on the card and let you guys know whether you should parlay them, play them straight, or avoid them altogether to not try to foil some of the parlays that you might be cooking up for this weekend's UFC card. And a reminder that the definition of a chalky spot for me is anything that is minus 185 or wider. So for this particular card, I believe 7 out of the 13 fights are considered chalk. I will say Harry Hardwick and Kawi Fernandez was just put together yesterday. There are no odds for it as at the time of this recording, but do not fret. I will be covering it in its own breakdown video, just a late notice breakdown video that I've been doing, as you guys have seen over the last couple of weeks, for any last minute fights that are put together. I'll be doing one for the Hardwick and Fernandez fight, so stay tuned for that one once we get odds and once the odds start settling out. All right. Let's get right into it. First matchup up we're going to talk about is Sam Hughes coming in at minus 310 as she goes up against Shauna Bannon. I think Bannon is one of the worst fighters on the UFC roster. She has some decent kickboxing, but no real threat in terms of finishing her opponents. Off her back, we saw last time around, she was able to pull off that comeback armbar victory. So she is active off her back with her BJJ, but I think a fighter of Sam Hughes' nature and skill level should be able to shut down Bannon's game completely, stay in control the entire time, whether it's with her pressure striking approach or looking to take her to the ground and smother her from that top position. So give me Sam Hughes, and I'm going to put her in their chalk-worthy category because I just do not think Shauna Bannon is all that good. Next up, we got Brad Tavares coming in at minus 210 going up against Robert Bryzcek. Tavares has, been an inconsistent fighter as of late, obviously coming off that win over Gerald Mearshart, but I think we're starting to see the age and the wars that he's been in start to catch up to him, and I think that's kind of impacted his durability, and that's something that Robert Bryzcek could absolutely take advantage of. Now I know Bryzcek laid an egg against Ihor Potieria in his UFC debut back in February of 2024, but I think we're going to see him learn from those mistakes and try to approach this a little bit more methodically, where we saw him knock out his previous 5 opponents in the first round coming into the UFC, and I think he has a threat to showcase that here against Tavares. Again, just watching his Potieria fight does not instill too much confidence, but knowing what he's capable of from what he's been able to do before coming to the UFC, this is a guy that could definitely put that power on Tavares and make him pay for it. So I'm picking Tavares to win, but at minus 210, I just do not think he is chalk-worthy considering where he's at in his career. Next up, we got Umar C coming in at minus 400 going up against Bryzcek Ribeiro. C suffered his first pro loss last time out against Alonzo Menafield, but this is a completely different matchup for him that I think he can pass with flying colors. Obviously, Ribeiro has the opportunity to land that Hail Mary shot on the feet considering his length and range. However, I think C is going to be able to cut that distance pretty easily, get a hold of Ribeiro, drag him to the ground, and then from there, I think it's just a matter of time before he musters up a big finish, whether it's by TKO or submission. I think C runs through Ribeiro and bounces back into the win column pretty emphatically. Thus, I'm going to put C in the chalk-worthy category. Next up, we got William Gomis coming in at minus 225, taking on UFC newcomer and former KSW featherweight champion Robert Ruchala. Very fun matchup here, but I think the slick striking and speed advantage of Gomis is going to allow him to counter Ruchala, shut down some of the takedowns early, and really just outpoint Ruchala en route to a decision victory. Does it happen at a 70% clip, though? That's the question. I don't think it does. I think Ruchala has a little bit of a slick striking game himself. He's obviously best when he can drag opponents to the ground and smother him with his BJJ approach. And I think he also has the cardio edge, which we know Gomis often starts to slow down later on in his matchups. And that's where Ruchala could potentially have some success and pull off the upset. I don't know what the ceiling of Ruchala in the UFC is thus far. His only loss in the KSW scene and coming into the UFC is against Saladin Parnassi, who is the biggest KSW star at the moment. And I, can't really hold Ruchala's feet over the flames for that loss. I think he can make this competitive. Thus, I'm going to have to put Gomis in the not chalk-worthy category, even though I think he wins. Our next up, we got another UFC debutante here as Keita comes in at minus 200, taking on Patricio Pitbull. Keita is one of the best European prospects to come out of that region in a long time, and I'm glad he gets to do showcase his work in the UFC as a 16-1 fighter, but firmly still young enough to go out there and create a great legacy for himself in the UFC. He's a powerful, fast, strong, explosive fighter who's done a great job in terms of shutting down every opponent that he's faced thus far. His lone loss came from a foot injury that he suffered about 60 seconds into that matchup. I can't recall the opponent that he did that happened against, but we know should that fight have been played back, Keita probably would have squashed him anyway. In this matchup against Pitbull, I expect him to go out there and just do everything that Pitbull does, but better and more. Pitbull is often muzzled by his own power because he knows if he just lands that one big shot, that could change the tide of a fight or just win it for him completely. But I'd be surprised if he's able to do that here against Keita, who I think is just far superior. And I don't think he'll choke under the bright lights. I think he'll do a great job in terms of establishing his dominance and eventually finding that big power to put Pitbull away. Thus, I'm going to put Keita in the chalk-worthy category. All right, next up, we got Modestas Bukauskas coming in at minus 350, going up against Paul Craig. Bukauskas has really started to come into his own in the UFC. Obviously, his only loss since returning to the promotion is to Vitor Petrino, who's a big power puncher. But I don't think Bukauskas will have too much to worry about in that realm against a BJJ specialist like Paul Craig. Obviously, Craig might be able to finagle his way to get this fight to the ground somehow, but I think Bukauskas should be able to shut that down with relative ease, then start to let go with his big power shots, and I think he slowly chips away at Craig and wins this fight on the scorecards, and I think he does it at a pretty decent clip. You know, Craig obviously is on the cusp of getting cut, should probably already be cut, should have not been for that no contest that he had against Rodolfo Belloto last time around, and I think Bukauskas will put that final nail in Craig's coffin and get him out of there and win this fight pretty decisively. So I'm going to put Bukauskas in the chalk-worthy category. All right, the final spot we're going to talk about for the segment here is in the co-main event, as we have the Fighting Nerds Maurizio Huffy going up against Benoit Saint-Denis, who's looking to pick up a win in front of his home crowd. And I think this is a very winnable fight for BSD. You know, I think Huffy, obviously flashy striker, good power, creating highlight reel knockouts just like he did last time around against King Green. But I think he's going to struggle to do that with the pace and pressure, especially in the grappling realm that he's going to face from Saint-Denis here. If you look closer into Huffy's fights, you'll see that sure, he's a great fighter when you allow him to compete at kicking range, but when you see him actually having to deal with guys that are constantly looking to take him to the ground, he does start to break unless his opponents completely gas themselves out and he's able to muster up a finish of his own. But I think BSD is going to do a good enough job in terms of being efficient with his cardio, efficient with his grappling, and I think that leads to him getting that submission within 2 rounds here. Thus, I'm going to put Huffy in the not chalk-worthy category. There you guys go. Chalk or not for UFC Paris. It's good to be back in the swing of things here. Appreciate all the love and support. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe if you haven't already. I'm trying to hit 10,000 subscribers before my birthday, which is actually middle of October. So if you guys can help your boy by hitting that subscribe if you haven't already, please do. That would be the best gift I can have in a month and a half or so. All right. I'll be back tomorrow for the quick picks version of the UFC Paris breakdown. See you guys then. Peace.